All right, welcome to another edition of the Ray of Hope Ministry podcast. I'm so glad to have Aaron Taylor with me today. He works with a ministry called Servant Care. And Aaron, before we dive into that, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ray. Appreciate it. So my name is Aaron Taylor. I've been married for 22 years. I've got four kids, three boys and a girl, ages 13, 15, 17, and 19. And we're currently living in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, but we've been all over. We've actually moved something unique that I haven't shared with you, but something we've moved 13 times in 22 years of marriage. So we've been in a lot of different places, both nationally and internationally.
Well, that's awesome. I look forward to hearing more of your story as we go along. But tell us a little bit about Servant Care and its ministries. I had a friend tell me about it just recently. I've been in ministry for 30 years and didn't know you guys existed. So I'm really excited to hear about what God is doing through your ministry.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl. So Servant Care, we've been around for 25 years, and we started um, to care for missionaries. The goal was to go to them where they were serving cross culturally all throughout the world, and to provide support for in whatever form that looked like. And so, as the founder and a good friend of his began traveling to different spaces all over all the different continents, they began to just try to meet needs. And the goal was to supplement any support that was lacking. With missionaries, there's a variety of sending agencies, there's a variety of church coverings with whom they can be sent from, and there's a variety of support models. So we're not pointing the fingers or saying things are good or bad. We're just coming in saying, hey, how can we help? What are your needs? From something very practical to something as basic as, do you need just someone to listen to what you're going through right now? Do you need counseling? Do you need what are all the things? And so from that, and really not coming in with suggestions on our side, but just sitting with missionaries and hearing from them, have developed a variety of ways that we serve missionaries and now pastors and those in vocational ministry over the past 25 years. And so the way that that's looked is we provide care for God's servants all over the world, and that's primarily through restful spaces and then genuine people that can provide care. A couple of ways specifically how that looks is we have our hospitality home network, and so these are a variety of Christian homeowners that have a space. Could be a guest bedroom, could be a vacation home, could be an Airbnb. But they want to offer that space up to bless missionaries and pastors for free or at a highly reduced rate. So we have a hospitality home network of close to 300 homes in 40 states nationwide and some internationally as well. We have personal care people. Some of those are homeowners that have hospitality homes that also provide different areas of personal care, whether it's marriage counseling or trauma or debriefing for missionaries that are coming back and have experienced trauma. Whatever those types of categories would be that you kind of would fit in like the counseling bucket, maybe, we offer those as well in certain locations and then some virtually. We have a prayer shield, so a team of intercessors, over 100 different intercessors that pray for people outside of people's main support. So if you're a pastor or a missionary and you're going into a season or a specific strategic push where you just need some additional prayer, or you're hurting, you're struggling, you're discouraged. I served in Haiti for several years on an island. So a lot of times when you're serving out there, you may be on an island physically or feel like you're on an island or both. So we get it. We just want to be come alongside of you and pray for those things. So we have a prayer shield, and then we also have a page of resources that we built up over the years of other member care ministries that provide different care things. So transportation, other sabbaticals and furlough locations, different counselors and things like that that are free or highly reduced. And that's on our resource page where someone can go in and just see all these different offerings. So yeah, that's a little bit about the different care ministry pathways that we offer.
I really love you guys' website. It's so user friendly, for someone that's looking for one of those hospitality homes. There's different filters and things, and I've been looking at it pretty thoroughly myself to think about how it might be a blessing to me and my wife. But I really wanted to help get the word out because I know you talk about, feeling like you're on an island. My wife and I served in Erie, Pennsylvania for 12 years as church planners. And when we first went there, we went by ourselves and then we had some team members join us later. But, there is an aspect of loneliness in ministry. And it's nice to be able to get away and as you said, doing it at a very reasonable cost for the pastor, missionary, and his family. So appreciate what you guys are doing. Oh,
Yeah.
you kind of hit on it briefly, but share with us a little bit why servant care feels so strongly that this is a ministry that's needed.
Yeah, great question. Um, well, I'll share a couple of things about that. It's kind of what pops into my mind is the directors for 24 years of the ministry, Larry and Anita Parks. At the time, they were managing a Waffle House in the small town of Eufaula, Alabama. It might be a big town for some people and a small town for others, but I guess to me it's considered a small town because I'm in the DFW Metroplex. so, uh, but they managed a Waffle House for 20 years, and um, they really had a deep care for people and a heart to reach the lost and those that were, on the fringe, the down and out, the discouraged, people struggling with marital issues or drug issues or whatever. And they just cared for people one person at a time in a very genuine way, leading them to Jesus and caring for them. And then one day the Lord put it on their heart that he was calling them into a place of caring for his workers, his field workers, those who are called to serve, shepherds, pastors, missionaries. And at first they were resistant to it, saying, Christians don't need Christ. They already have Jesus. you know, there's such a heart for the lost. And the Lord gave them this picture of this box, and in it were like voices crying out, "Help me!" And the Lord showed her a key, that they had the key of helping those who, you know, know the Lord but are still frazzled, frustrated, worn out, discouraged, experiencing tragedy or loss in a challenging situation, and need that encouragement, whatever that may be, to help them keep going. And so that was how they joined the ministry 24, 25 years ago. But in addition to receiving that, the as far as like why this is needed, I see it, and we discussed about this a little earlier on. Two sides of the same coin. You got one coin, you got heads and tails. So it's needed for the one side, which are those God has called to serve, and it's needed also for the other side, which is the church, inviting believers into practicing biblical hospitality, which is really, I think, a lost or kind of been thrown out the window a little bit in our Western world. But for those who serve, for pastors and ministry leaders, um, we see it as a need because we've been there and we've visited them on the field over the years and looked into their eyes and heard it from their mouths directly that this is a need. So, straight from the horse's mouth, you could say, so to speak, that it's a need. Every missions director that I've spoken with says housing specifically is always a need. Mental health is a big thing right now. So soul care, personal care, mental care, those types of things are huge need. I know a missions director. He's a friend of mine. He's in Waco, Texas, and he oversees 200 missionary, family or units, so to speak. He also oversees the entire network of churches, missionaries, member care, which is 80 churches nationwide, give or take. So I don't know how many thousands of missionaries they have, but the one church has 200. Well, last year he had 13 missionary families come back for their furlough, and the church owns 5 homes. So just doing the math, that's 8. That's a lack of 8 families that need a place. And so this guy who's been in missions decades, who's part of a massive organization, massive church planning movement that has a heartbeat for missions. And I'm talking more along the mission side of things, not really the pastors yet. But there's a need there as well. So this guy had a need last summer, a significant need. And typically what happens is, someone spends money for an Airbnb or a hotel, or they stay with family, and so it's not restful. The purpose of furlough for missionaries is for it to be restful. So if this guy who's been doing this for decades, has a need, then surely others have a need. And like I said, I'm talking to dozens and dozens of missionary directors, and they're always telling me how much of a need it is. For pastors, burnout's a real thing. The demands that a pastor has. Someone was telling me the other day, like the pastor of most church pastors have 100, 200 maybe congregation. And someone's telling me the other day, you might know better because you were a church planner for 12 years. I've never done that. But they're like, yeah, a pastor of a small church is not only your pastor, but he's also your electrician and your plumber. And like they started listing all these different things because they get these calls from members of the congregation, like, hey, can you come over and fix this thing? And, these types of things. And so the demand is very high. Having places for them to go where they can just kind of let their hair down and be, um, is huge, especially if they're living in a place that's a parish that's on the property of the church. And then they're always there. And so just giving them spaces to get away and breathe can really, even for a moment, can help them continue going. For the host or for the believers that are hosting missionaries on the other side of the coin, the reason why I see it as a need is in the West, I think overall as Christians, there's a great value on privacy and individualism. And I get that with the history of the USA and everything, but really, like biblically, if you look at the model that Jesus calls us to live, we're called to be like in community and hospitality. Like maybe just inviting someone over for dinner is not the full extent of hospitality. Biblically, if you look at it, when people traveled, instead of having Airbnbs and hotels and all these things that we have nowadays for people to go to, believers opened their home, and they were all, it was a common thing. It was like expected that you open your home and you come in and you host, and they sleep there. They have a place for it. And so we get to invite believers into a place of generosity. I don't see it as biblically normal, nor should it be for us to have large homes that are empty for long periods of time and guest rooms that are empty. And when there's this massive need, I was just talking to a friend of mine today, and this is outside of the scope of pastors and missionaries, but I was talking to a friend of mine today where they said a church member was under crisis and they spent over $6,000 on Airbnb costs because they don't know anyone in that town. And that's crazy for me to think of. I owned a home in Colorado for 5 years, and I had a guest bedroom, and it was the first bedroom that I furnished. And my heart was to host people. It sat empty for like close to 4 years, other than my wife's parents coming a few times. And then when my parents, who were serving in missions at the time, they finished their time early, so they spent 9 years in total. My mom had a major health crisis, so they ended up coming off the field. When they came off the field, they didn't have any support from the mission agency. And I'm not saying this shame on the mission agency. I'm just saying this is the reality of the situation. And who they were with is one of the larger sending organizations. And so they had nothing, no support, no home. So guess where they stayed? In my guest room. And so we got to use it for them. So we just have so many resources here in the United States of America. And it's become so normal to have these resources become vacant and not to be utilized and to be used. And so my heart cry is to really leverage these resources, because the kingdom is about people. We know that. Like we're not taking any of this stuff with us. We're not taking our cars. We're not taking our houses. We're not taking all of the shiny things. It's about people. So I believe God wants to use the resources that we have to help people. And so I think it's a huge need for the church to invite them back into biblical hospitality. And it is daunting. It can be daunting if you've never hosted someone, or if you've got a stranger coming over and you're like, wait a second, Aaron, you're telling me to host a stranger from Uganda or Africa or New York or someone in my house, like, and I've never met them before? Absolutely. That's what we're asking. And there's some safety things and some stuff that we have in place to help you with that. We've been doing this for 25 years, so we get that. But I love what the Apostle John says in the letter of Third John. He's talking to Gaius, and he says, "You have acted faithfully in the care that you've shown for these brothers and sisters, although they were strangers to you." And so he hosted them in his home, and then he starts talking about how they've reported their love, the love of their church back to their church, and how they treated them. And then he says, because they received nothing from the pagans, you should send them on a way worthy of God, so that we may be partakers of them in the gospel. Like beyond hospitality, like now he's telling them to, like, and he's commending him for the care that they've shown for them, but then also to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God, like hosting Jesus himself. Jesus says, you've given a cup of water to these, then you've given it to me, and you're not going to lose your reward. So man, I get it. It's daunting. It can be challenging to step into that realm, but it's so rewarding. And I think there's such a huge need for believers to share their spaces.
That's awesome. I appreciate your passion. I can tell from you sharing that you're very passionate about this ministry and about helping. Our kind of little tagline for our ministry is caring for those who care for others, and hopefully that's not copyrighted, but really
So it sounds
that's
similar, man. I see the
kind of what we
connection.
want to do.
Yep,
But
that's right.
you were sharing before we got on air about some folks that have been helped through this ministry. Can you give us maybe one or two examples without being too specific, but just share a couple of examples of people that have been blessed by servant care?
Yeah, so a couple of examples come to mind. I was telling you one the other day. I was having a conversation with a pastor here locally. He's a friend of mine, and he was tearing up, looking at me, just saying that he's able to take a 10-day family trip that he would never be able to take. He hasn't done this in 4 years, and so it's time for them just to have time with one another. And he's like, "Bro, if it wasn't for what you're doing with servant care, I'd never be able to take this." And so last month alone, we hosted over 40 ministry families, but it's all remote. So the hosts get to see the impact a lot of times. I don't. And so for me to sit in front of him and to see him tear up like that, it helped me to be like, okay, even though I'm not like experiencing it personally, what's happening, like this is helpful, like God's moving. So that's one example. Another example is last year, there was a pastor from one state that was adopting twins in another state. So they're going through the adoption process. Well, the mother who was giving birth went into labor early. So they needed emergency housing. And we were able to connect them with one of our hospitality home hosts. And so the pastor and his wife stayed there for, I mean, you've seen the rates on our site. It's like $15 a night for most of our homes. Very, very affordable. So they're able to stay there. And not only that, they stayed there for 2 weeks throughout the whole process. But then because of what we do, like God unites the body. And because they were there for such a long time and it was such a significant milestone, the hospitality hosts, homeowners became like, aunt and uncle or grandma, grandpa kind of a thing. They became family, right? Like adopting these twins, bringing the twins in and being a part of this home. And so they have an extended family beyond like just being in the home. So it was a blessing in multiple ways. And the last example I can think of is, or it's not the last example, but I know we don't have all day. So another example, there's more, there's more. Because we don't just do housing, but we also, in a sense, because we have our hospitality house network, but we also have extensive relationships throughout beyond that extend beyond just the visual network of our home. So sometimes we're able to help in emergent situations. So when October 7th happened, there's a missionary who serves in Jerusalem who reached out to us for housing. And when their leader said they had to evacuate, and they're back now, but when they said they had to evacuate, um, we were able to kick into gear and connect with our contacts and be a part of providing the solution. And the cool thing was that that person had two specific cities in the entire United States that they needed to go to, because you're sending church or family. Those are the reasons that, when they come back. And so I was like, all right, this is very specific. You sure you can't just go anywhere? Like, no, these are the two specific things. And the cool thing, even though they didn't end up getting their housing like through servant care, it actually was provided through someone else, but we were able to be a part of the solution and we had more than one option to come back to them. That was the cool thing is not only were we able to help be a part of the solution and to provide the answer, but we were able to give options to them to be able to make a decision. And they're able to have a safe place to land, to process things, to re-engage, and then just be sent back out. So yeah, man, that was awesome. And at the end of the day, like we don't care, like servant care, or if it's, the name of your ministry, Ray of Hope, right? Or whatever, like whatever the name is. I mean, we're doing this for Jesus, and so He's the one that we're doing it for. And so, if we can be a part of the process and helping someone in a situation like that, we count it an honor to be able to do that.
Amen. Maybe there's a missionary or church planter or just a discouraged pastor or pastor's wife that's watching this, and they just are like, we just need to get away. What would you say to them? And maybe give them a brief walk through the process of what they need to do to maybe look through your site and find a place to stay for a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, the first thing I would say is look, there's mountains of reasons why not to do this. So the first thing I would say is give yourself permission to get away and don't feel bad about it. You know, I don't know if you've experienced that, Daryl, in your time church planning for 12 years, for whatever the reasons may be. I know that I experienced that as a missionary or whatever that is. I think getting past that part is healthy to get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm doing this. It's okay. Jesus got away. We should get away too. Like everyone should get away, especially if you're in that type of a role. You know what I'm saying? So give yourself permission to say, yes, this is fine. Like you're not being a bad steward. It's okay. Right. Um, and then secondly, the practical side of things, the first thing you want to do is create an account on our website. So go to servantcare.com, click at the top, it'll say sign in. And then if you scroll down, it'll say create an account or set up an account or something like that. Click that, and then you'll register. And so that's the start of the process. You'll fill out a form. You'll also provide a pastoral referral. So we require that everyone who's part of the network has a covering and has a leader that we ask a referral from them, that they can vouch for them and speak to their integrity and character. And then once you go through the vetting process, you'll be approved to request a booking if you need a place to get away to. And so once that's all done, you can go online and just as you said, servantcare.com, and you can put in the filters. If you go to our hospitality homepage, that'll show you all of the different places that we have. And then there's different options on the left, how many nights you're trying to get away to or get away for. Is there a specific location? How many travelers? Is it just you and the Lord? Is it you and your wife? Is it a family? And when you put all those different options in, the site will pop back with results, kind of like a VRBO or Airbnb, kind of like initial version one kind of model. And so our goal was to make it as simple as possible to serve those in ministry, so it's not complicated. I remember when I was doing mission work and trying to find places to go, you get popped on a bunch of different sites, and it's like, well, how much is this? Like that I can't afford that, and it would take so much time just to try to find a location, and then only to find out, oh, that doesn't serve this type of person, or oh, that's booked, or oh, that's too expensive, or all the O's, right? And then you just wasted 30 minutes or an hour digging into something, and then you're like, okay, forget about it. Like maybe I will do it after, So, so we're just trying to remove like the kind of the least path of resistance, remove all the challenges to make it easy to try to find something that'll work for you, to get away to. We even have filters that are like, hey, if you want to try to be near water, or if you want an unhosted home, 70% of our homes are hosted. And there's a lot of value in that because God connects the body. And what I mean by hosted is that all the common spaces are shared with the homeowner. And then you have a private, bathroom or a private place where you sleep, like a guest bedroom. And then 30% of our homes are currently unhosted. So that would be, a vacation home or an Airbnb or a private basement that's part of the same house, but it has a separate exit, separate entrance type thing. And so you can know right away kind of what you're looking for, what you're getting into. And then after you find what you're looking for, you would submit a booking request. And that's the start of the process. I don't know if you want me to go through all the steps, but that's really it. Create an account, find a place, submit a request. That's how you get started.
Sounds good. Let's talk about the other side of that coin real quick. Maybe there's somebody listening that does have, a vacant home or a home on Airbnb that doesn't get used a lot, or a separate living quarters like a mother-in-law suite or something like that. And they're like, I could use this for the kingdom. What do they need to do if they're interested in learning more about servant care?
Yeah, that'd be great. We have a need for that. So if they're um, ready to take the next step to join the network and start the process of becoming a hospitality home, they could go to servantcare.com and then click become a host button. And then once they land on that page, there's a form on that page that they would fill out. And I get that form, it comes directly to me. So that's the fastest way to do it. If they're unsure, So if you're listening to this and you're like, sounds great, Aaron, but I've got some questions first. Like, you've got me interested, but I'm stepping into the pool. I'm not ready to take a cannonball into the deep end, which is cool. I get it. I get it. I'm a cannonball person myself. I'm a dad of, 4 kids, so I love cannonball into the deep end. But hey, I understand, we got steps in the pool too. Just email me. You can email me at aaron.taylor, it's aaron.taylor at servantcare.com. And so email me and just reach out. And there's, we're not here to strong arm anyone, unless the Lord builds the house. Those who build it build in vain. And so our heart is really to partner with people that God's moving on, Holy Spirit stirring your heart, that we would partner with you and get you into a place where you can, obey the Lord and open your home. So no commitment necessary. Just call me and we can chat, or, shoot me an email. That'd be great.
Well, Aaron, thank you for your time today. This has been great information. I'm excited to hear back from our listeners and those that are able to watch this to hear about how they have taken advantage of the blessing that Servant Care offers. And we appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, Daryl, thank you so much, man, for having me on and inviting me to be a part of this and promoting this ministry. I really appreciate it.